What is going on, y'all? So we had NJMP this weekend with NASA Northeast at Lightning course. They have two courses there, Lightning and Thunderbolt, and it was like the weekend from hell. So I Friday or Thursday I spent all day working, and then I thought I had time to pack the car and stuff, but I ended up finding out that my assignments for my MBA were a lot harder than I thought they would be. So it took a little bit of time. Then I had team meetings that put me back leaving from the house. So that wasn't too bad. I got to the track and things happened. No big deal. So I I went and set up my tent, went to bed, and was fine. I woke up, did the instructor school, so I was a mentor for the new instructors, which was pretty dope. I really appreciate them giving me the opportunity to do that. I don't know if I'm worthy of doing that, to be honest with you. And it was, but I'm grateful, and went out in the afternoon to test the car. It was breaking up, or not breaking up, but cutting out around like 4,000 RPMs, and sometimes cutting out just randomly on track. So that was frustrating. I thought I had fixed all the issues, and apparently I didn't. So parked the car. While I'm out on track, exhaust falls off. I'm like, great, that's cool. So the spring bolts had undone themselves. They loosened up, even though I tightened them. And so I hear this dragging, and then I'm dragging the exhaust by an O2 sensor. So bring it back in, put the exhaust back on, and then I hear this like rock sound coming from the valve train, and I'm like, what the hell is that? Because I had zinged the motor on track as well, because the transmission that I had spent time working on also didn't feel great. So I come back in, valve train sounds like a bag of rocks. I'm like, okay, this is after I fixed the exhaust. So pull the valve cover, a nut for the keeper had backed off and fell in the oil pan. So I tried to get a magnet to put it in the dipstick to pull the nut out. The magnet from the magnet broke off in the dipstick. So then I had to take the exhaust off again, take the header off. I had to drain the oil. I had to drop the oil pan. Luckily, when I dropped it, I found the nut. It was still there. And then I pulled the broken magnet out, put the oil pan back on, put the header back on, put the exhaust back on. But now I needed an O2 sensor because it didn't seem to be reading right. Put the valve cover back on after tightening everything up and stuff. And so we go into town. I ordered an O2 sensor. The Advanced Auto is inexplicably closed an hour early. I call the town over. I'm like, what the hell's going on? They're like, oh, they had an emergency. So, okay. So we go to another town in Vineland, get the O2 sensor, come back to the track. I put it in, whatever, right? So then, I go to sleep in the tent, and wake up in the middle of the night, and I'm wet. Tent was leaking from the top. So, in the morning I tried to find the leak, but there was no hole in the top of the tent. So, okay, so all my stuff's wet now. So then I go out for my first session on Saturday, and the car is still kind of running crappy, but then I go through a puddle on track, and then it just completely dies. Like, it's like just misfiring, backfiring horribly. I limp it back to my paddock spot. We replaced the distributor so that we can see if the crank position sensor was bad on the OEM one. Doesn't do anything. Pull the coil from coil number 1. We find there's water had gotten into the coil. We're like, okay, dry that out. Okay, put a new one back in. It's running again, but it's still kind of running like crap. So pull all the coils, pull all the plugs. The plugs are fouled, likely from Watkins Glen when I was running with that map sensor issue. Put some new plugs in. Put the coils back on, and then drive the car around paddock. It breaks up at first, warms up, only has a cutout around 4,000 RPMs, gets to full running temp, stops cutting out, stops acting weird altogether. Trying to pull logs from the ECU. ECU wouldn't let me, like, it was like iffy, like it would, I guess because I'm using an aftermarket USB stick, which is why I have this one, which came with the Infinity, so I'm going to install that now. And it was like being iffy on letting me pull logs, like whether it would record the log or not. So then, run the rest of the day. Car kind of runs okay, get some laps in. I tested some tires. I tested sway bar. I tested offsets on wheels. I didn't really test any shock settings. I didn't really get to test much more than that. But yeah, testing went okay. I kind of confirmed that what I had before is what I liked. So we're just trying to work around the minutia, see if we can get something better. next, and student does well for the first day, Saturday. So Sunday comes around. Again, same problems with the car, trying to figure out why the problems are there. We can't figure it out. Trying to pull logs, can't pull the logs. And then I'm with my student, and we had an incident on track. So that was great. So I help him fix his car so he can drive home. I had to align his car and fix a fender, and then so he gets home, and yeah, I got home from the track, and then my mom is always worried about me racing, so she picks this time to lecture me about racing. So then we get in a fight. And I got home and I called my boss, and I was like, listen, I know this is kind of like unprofessional and last minute, but like I had a really bad weekend, I need tomorrow off. So took today off. This weekend was terrible. Worst weekend I've had at the track ever, including the weekends I've crashed. Worst weekend ever. Hands down. So hopefully it gets better. I reached out to some shops to see if they would troubleshoot the car. I reached out to 1-to-1 Tuning, who tuned the car twice, once at Watkins Glen. I never got a response back. And then I reached out to him again today, no response. Reached out to Jeff Evans, said that he's fully booked. Reached out to a local shop that does imports, but they work with AEM. They said that it works with domestics. They said they don't do imports. Reached out to TK Autosports in South Jersey. Guy never got back to me. Reached out to my buddy Ben DeAngeli. He actually did say he would take it, but he doesn't really know AEM. So if it is an ECU issue, he wouldn't really know how to work with it. And then I reached out to RT Tuning, and they couldn't help me. All the people that I've reached out to on the internet kind of just said the same, like they kind of gave me like these troubleshooting things that you should check anyway. This is how it always goes. So I left a long synopsis of what happened and what I needed help with and stuff, and no one responded to that. Of course, people mean well, but reading is hard. I get it. It's like it takes a long time. And then, I had one guy who reached out, supposedly an expert in AEM, and then he was like, yeah, there's no way that the OEM distributor will work with coil on plug sequential firing. And I was like, then why did it work for an entire year before this? I'm loving this, right? So then I'm like, well, can I put the OEM distributor back on? He's like, no, you probably need to get it tuned again. I'm like, do I? I don't. Do you have any resources to figure out how to tune? Guy doesn't have any resources to help me out. I'm like, it's just, and this is why I'm always troubleshooting my own stuff, is because no one can ever help me. It's like, and then like, the best I get is like, oh, AEM sucks, and go run something else. And I'm like, well, the amount of times I've seen upload errors and software glitches and tune corruptions on Hondata, which is the other ECU that we were only allowed to use in the class for a long time. If I had a dime for every time I saw that, I'd be able to buy an AEM Infinity. So like, they're aftermarket ECUs. We're not running Motec over here. We're running AEM Infinity and daughter boards soldered on 30-year-old ECUs. So we can now run Haltex and Honda Challenge. I don't think it's an ECU problem. I'm just kind of venting to you guys. But it's been fun, to say the least. So we pulled the logs. It does look like promising on this ECU, or this laptop. We pulled some logs, and we were able to get some logs that were like 8 megabytes in size, which seems like an entire session. So we should be able to troubleshoot something from that. This is the old stick I was using. It is a 16 gigabyte. It was formatted properly. It's just older and kind of crappy. So what I did was I got this. This is going to replace it. This came with AEM, but I didn't know it at the time. I dug through the box and I found it. So now we got that. So we're going to, hopefully that'll make troubleshooting stuff easier. But I guess I'm kind of on my own now. I have to decide whether I want to send it to Ben DeAngeli and have him learn more about AEM. Because I might honestly know more than him about the software at this point, because I've troubleshooted it quite a bit. And either take it to him on the trailer and hope he can finish this before the race, or work on it myself, hope I can do it before the race. And then I guess worst case scenario is I do the race, and assuming the car does not change, then we can run the car, and it'll be weird when it starts up, and then it'll clear up as it runs, hopefully. I also cracked the rotor. I forgot to mention that. I was going out, I was testing some new tires, and I was testing some new offsets, and it was like, wow, the car feels great. And then I hear it's like vibrating a lot, and I'm like, ooh, it feels like the wheel's gonna fall off. So I brought it in really carefully, checked the lugs, couldn't find them loose, drive to the paddock. I couldn't find anything wrong immediately. Put the wheels back on, and then I'm looking at the rotors, and they're cracked right near where they meet up with the aluminum hats. So ST43 pads, Ray Bestos ST43 pads, Willwood Dynalite road racing kit, and floating rotors. But they're floating rotors. They're not. There's no like spring mechanism to allow them to move or anything like that. It is they're basically like bolted on. So I don't know if you can see this, but yeah, they're just basically bolted on. So maybe there's a better way to put them together. If you guys know, let me know. But yeah, this is just a status update, kind of. We're gonna start troubleshooting at some point. I started unloading the vehicle. We're gonna put this in the car. I'm gonna bring the logs inside on my desktop and spend some time going through them, sitting through them. I'll send them to some people that know what they're doing. My buddy Pete Theo races AER. He does work for Random Vandals Racing, Alex Rubenstein Garage, and he like builds all of their cars, and he's a genius. So I'm gonna send it to him. He's a friend of mine. And then I'm gonna send the log to whoever else can help me. I know a couple of people like Chad Slag have reached out and have been like, hey, send me your logs. So if you're watching this and you want to help, I am in the South Jersey area. I will tow my car to you and I'll pay you to troubleshoot this, because I could maybe figure it out, but probably not in the span of 2 weeks with work and school and everything. And that's a probably. That's not a definitely. I'm good at building cars, and I'm good at making them faster to an extent. I'm good at driving them, but I'm not good at troubleshooting. So that's a weak point of mine. And we're working on getting better at that this season. So I'm going to put this in the car. I'm going to go bring the logs inside, and thank you for watching, guys. This was just an update. Peace.